I know. You do kind of get to the point where you think, if they're not going to do any work, why not just close the school 2 weeks earlier?
Yeah, and then you could go on holiday when the prices.
Yeah.
But then the prices would go up because everybody would be open, closing schools 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah. Although the private schools around here closed about a week ago, so our neighbours are already away.
Well, that's it. We took our kids out for 1 day just because of the flights, and they weren't very pleased about it at school. And then we thought, well, we don't want to, that's it. We'll just do that. And then they come home and say, oh, he's off for 2 weeks where he goes away. Oh, right, that's okay then.
Yeah. I think I said I accidentally booked the wrong week at Easter, and I thought, oh, well, it's only 3 days, so we took them out of school, and that didn't go down too well. But like I said, there's plenty of others that do it for much longer. It's the first time we've ever done it. It was purely a mistake, but yeah.
It's not like, especially when they're only young, it's not like it's going to do anything major to their education, is it?
No, and then they're on strike on a Thursday here, so you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, that's even worse, isn't it? That's like rubbing it in.
Yeah.
Right, I'll send this link out. If I can type.
That's always a challenge.
Right, I think we're all set. Live stream's on. So, Gary and Jason, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good to be back.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of news about this week, and a heads up as well for next week, because next week we have the return of our favourite special guest, Ed Bob.
Does that mean I have to not be on the show, because I've never actually managed to be on the show at the same time as Ed?
Well, you'll have to try and break that this time and actually be on the show.
So some people think we're one and the same person, but that's definitely not the case.
You need to be here next week, so hopefully you can make it. So we've got definitely some Windows Phone stuff to talk about, some app news, Xbox apps, Surface updates, Surface rumors, counter rumors, and a lot of good stuff. And okay, so we'll start with, last week I mentioned that I should have a new device on the way to me.
Yep.
A large device, and it arrived, the Lumia 1520, and it's now back. It's gone again.
Yeah, you didn't have too much luck with it, did you, unfortunately?
No. And the basic problem was it got no service. Although in the office, sat at a desk, it would get sort of 1 bar of signal, of 3G signal. If I went downstairs, it sort of would drop off to no service. Here at home, it wouldn't have service at all anywhere in the house. And compared that side by side with my Android phone, and I thought, well, just to be fair, I'll try it on the HTC phone. And the HTC phone was getting sort of 4 bars and 3G. The 1520 had no service. I really was willing it to work, and I thought, well, I'll put up with it if it works in places where I'll use it, because I use it mainly for data. So, but it was just not good enough. There was just not enough signal for it to work. So, hopefully, it was some kind of radio fault. And just to be certain as well, I put the original ROM back on there as well, the factory Windows Phone 8 image, because I had put it on 8.1 because Gary, you suggested that it could be a driver issue, but it wasn't.
No. I mean, I certainly have heard of that particular problems with Wi-Fi while it's on there. Those people are telling me that's actually been fixed in later updates anyway, so I think you just got a faulty device.
Yeah, which is a real shame, because it's an absolute gorgeous device. The screen is really nice. Even on when it's running on Windows Phone 8, it's really nice because you get the extra row of tiles anyway. So you didn't really sort of see too much on that. You sort of miss out on the notifications. But a really nice screen and a very nice looking phone and a fantastic camera as well. But like I said, I only got a few shots out of it, and so I've returned it now. So hopefully it should get back to them today, tomorrow, and then they can send me out another one, because it was a nice bright yellow, which I liked as well.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, Nokia has got a pretty good track history of good, sturdy, well-built devices, but I think in some ways maybe with them transitioning to using external suppliers and external factories, that maybe some of that kind of quality got got lost along
Yeah.
the way. But it was definitely a shame that you had that problem, especially with me hankering on for so
Yeah.
many months.
And-
I should have got a Nokia.
And like I said, I was kind of willing to give it a bit of slack and thought, well, if I was, if instead of having 4 bars it has 1 bar, then that's fine. But I was in a cafe in Chorley, and my Nexus 5 had full, the full signal strength, and it had HSD DPA plus, and this was getting no service, and then it would flick onto GSM and then off again. So I can't. It's basically not. You can't do anything with it then, can you? And that, like I said, that's my data sim in it, so that's my sort of thing that I use for tethering. So it's pointless.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But
although, yeah, I know, ironically, with phones getting used less and less for phones, it's but like you say, when you're using it for data, it's it's absolutely critical. So
yeah,
my Lumia 920 has always been pretty rock solid. The only times I've ever had issues is because I tend to work in areas where it's a metal building where your signal just doesn't penetrate it no matter what phone you've got.
yeah. I mean that's I would be happy if it worked. If it didn't really work here, but I could get it on the Wi-Fi, so that's not a problem. It would just, when I'm out and about, I wanted it, and it just wasn't quite enough. It wasn't enough. I was happy to put up with a bit of signal loss because it's not my primary device. But when you're paying that much for it, you want it to do the job.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So
I think there's some rumours about is it a 1525 or 35 now?
Yeah,
so,
1525. Yeah.
So maybe you could hang on for that one.
Well, they're going to send me a replacement, so I'll have the
Right.
replacement. So I'm hoping to get that, and that'll work, and I'll be happy then.
Yes.
That's my plan anyway. But I have to say, it's got a great screen, really nice screen, very fast. Windows 8.1 works on it really well. The one thing I've noticed though, and I guess this is up to the developers to fix, is you don't get a huge amount of benefit of the large screen. Everything is just bigger. So, and the biggest culprit for that, I think, was the Twitter app and the Facebook app, where you still got the same amount of data that you would do on a small phone. So maybe my HTC, it just was big text, and I was kind of hoping it would just give you like a tablet where it would scale it. Maybe is that a developer option, Gary, or is that just the way that Windows Phone works?
I'm trying to remember, actually. I don't think I've seen anything on scale. Now, I'll have a look up while we're on the show and just see if there is anything for it, but I can't remember seeing anything. I mean, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a way of doing it.
Yeah.
It certainly is on games. I know on the sort of game side that you can, but whether you can on normal apps.
Didn't I read in some of the reviews of the 1520 that Microsoft had tweaked things like the email application to take advantage of the larger
Yeah, I think
resolution?
they had. Yeah.
I think that actually I didn't really get a lot of time with, but yeah, I think the email did look. It was the Twitter app and the Facebook app that were the sort of culprits.
Yeah, I'm sure there must be a way of doing it. Probably because I've not actually developed, and I think that's probably the problem with most developers is that they don't have 1525s or the larger screen devices. So at the moment they're not really targeting those devices so much.
And I got the yellow case as well. It looks really nice on it. So if I get it back, the new version and all up and running, I'll be very pleased.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I would have thought, because the phone should report its resolution and screen size, so it may well be that just developers, need to take advantage, and I guess it's yet another scaling option that they need to code for, isn't it? So,
yeah. I wonder if it's available in Universal apps, not in traditional Silverlight apps, or if you've got a Silverlight, if you've got an app which was Windows 8, which has just been put onto the phone, it wouldn't recognise it.
Yeah, certainly possibly. I guess in some ways it's developers actually having or thinking that there's a market for that, sufficient quantity of those phones to make it worth their while to put in the effort.
But I tell you what, when you use it as a camera, the display is superb. So then you're holding it up as a camera, it's absolutely fantastic for that. Really clear.
Yeah.
So when you're using one of those makeup mirror programs, it works really well.
Oh yes. The accuracy of my lipstick has vastly improved. But now I've sent it back, it's all smudged again.
That would do it.
Maybe there's more devices coming along like that. I think the 930's got the similar resolution, hasn't it? So I think as those devices become more prevalent, maybe it'll developers will put in the effort. I mean, at the moment we're just thankful they put in the effort to actually write the apps in the first place, let alone tailor it for each individual device.
Yeah. But anyway, very very nice hardware. If they fix that signal issue, and hopefully I'll get it back soon, I'll be very happy with that, and that'll be my sort of primary data device. And I think if I was going on a day out and want to take lots of pictures, then I probably would take both actually, because you end up flattening your battery on any phone when you take loads of pictures. But it would be the best device to take for taking photos, definitely.
Yes, yeah. Actually, talking about battery life, sorry, I know Nokia released their wireless charging plate, which you can charge wirelessly, just like a portable one. And I was just reading some reviews of it on Amazon, because I was kind of quite tempted. But interesting, a lot of the comments say that it doesn't work so well because of the loss in the wireless charging technology. I think there's about 30% loss in the actual transfer of energy, that it actually isn't capable of fully recharging some of the bigger devices with the bigger batteries.
Right.
Which is something I hadn't really thought of when I was contemplating getting it.
Yeah, I can imagine, because that's I imagine there's a large battery in that 1520 to keep that screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's a shame they hadn't kind of compensated for that by making the battery in the actual device, the recharging plate, that much bigger. Because although it's quite neat to have a wireless charging plate that you can just take wherever you want, and if you in the middle of a park you could just set your phone down on it. But it does seem that the ones that actually plug into via the micro USB to USB connectors actually are far more efficient at charging the devices.
I've thought about wireless charging a few times, because the Nexus 5 supports it, but I'm not really that bothered. The times when I charge it are in the evening on the bedside table and do it with the cable, and the other times in the car when I'm driving and I've got a cable as well. So it's not really that critical. I suppose it would be nice if I had it in the cradle in the car, so I didn't have to plug a wire in. But yeah, it's only one step.
Yeah, I mean, I bought that the little round circle Nokia wireless charging plate that plugs into via USB, and I've got that at work because I was kind of getting frustrated. Kind of sit at your desk and plug your phone in to charge it up, and then someone calls you away and you kind of unplugging it. It's just so great now because I just sit down at my desk and just drop it on the plate and it just starts charging. And then if I need to get up again, I just pick it up and walk away. It's goes back to the whole lack of tethering. It's just really nice, the fact that there's no wires. You don't have to think, and now I've got my Bluetooth headphones. It's I'm just completely wires free. It's great.
Oh, and that was the other thing, that the Lumia came with some very nice bright yellow headphones, but obviously they've gone back. So hopefully I'll get them when I get the new ones. better than having the white ones.
Yes.
Although with headphones, I always feel I always wanted to be. It must be a generational thing where you wanted the inconspicuous, small in-ear bud things. But now I see kids quite happy to have giant headphones like I've got on now for doing this, walking around.
Yeah, it's all about the beats, man.
Yeah. Right. Well. So continue on the Windows Phone. Any sign of the update? Have you got the update on your phones yet?
No.
No 8.1.
I keep checking mine, which is a T-Mobile locked 920, and my wife's, which is a bought SIM-free unlocked 820, and no sign. And then in more depressing, which we talked about just the other week, I've saw rumours of the update 1 being finished, and that just I mean, number one, it would be nice if Microsoft made a bit of a fanfare about these things coming out, because at the moment there's no real information circulating. And secondly, it just seems the fact that they've now RTM'd or potentially going to RTM the update 1 when the original update hasn't actually even shipped properly, it does become a bit of a joke.
This reminds me of this. Wasn't it 7.5? Was it 7.5 or the first Windows Phone 7 update that took ages?
Yeah, there was the Nodo update which had some issues that took absolutely ages. But then there was the Mango update where they actually got all the carriers to pretty much sign it off all at the same time, and it kind of shipped to everybody. They managed that once. But no, the Windows 8.1 update. There's kind of talks about it coming out to some of the some phones. I think like the 1020 in certain countries, but no, there just doesn't seem to be anything really coming out. About it, and you kind of get fed up with asking the Twitter accounts because you just get the generic T-Mobile response of, oh yeah, keep watching this space. And
And who's holding that up then? Is it the carriers signing it off, or have Microsoft got to do something, or is it Nokia with the Cyan update? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything that necessarily says that Nokia have actually finished the Cyan update, other than the fact that it's obviously now coming out, starting to dribble out on a few devices in a very limited rollout. But yeah, I mean, essentially, it's really, as far as I'm aware, down to the carriers. But then that doesn't fit with the fact that my wife's 820, which isn't carrier locked, that normally gets the updates pretty quickly. And more frustrating, as I mentioned, last week, Nokia used to have an amazing name and shame page where they listed every carrier in every country and the status of each update on each device. But I'm guessing Microsoft shied away from doing that, so I guess that's unfortunately a victim of the merger. Sorry, not the merger, the buyout.
Well, I mean, my HTC hasn't got the update either, so I presume either HTC are also doing drivers, or again it's just a carry thing, but that's an unlocked phone as well.
Yeah, and it does seem so. I mean, even there was an update to Windows 8, Windows Phone 8. There were a couple of updates, and even then it seemed to be a much more chatter and a much more much more activity in terms of the thing getting released. And with the previous Nokia 2 updates, again there was a lot of noise, but really. That information was feeding through from Nokia, and now Microsoft are, they're clearly backing away from that, which is a shame. Maybe Cortana knows.
Well, yeah. So that's the next question. So can we ask Cortana on our UK-based phones?
Yeah, because apparently it's coming really soon.
No. They said the end of June to me.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think that was 2015. I mean, I said this the other day. I really think that Microsoft need to learn from the people they've acquired in Nokia, and learn to under-promise, over-deliver rather than the other way around. I mean, that seems to be what they constantly do at the moment. They're over-promising, under-delivering, and that's not a good way of marketing things.
Because the average user obviously doesn't care or doesn't even know.
No, true.
But us enthusiasts, and we want to see it on there. So the official word from the Windows Phone UK account is not in July.
Yeah.
So,
which is
true. It's not July. It could be June. It still could be June.
Yes. I mean, it does seem to. I mean, it is. It's one of those selling points that Windows Phone so desperately needs, and to kind of not have it available just loses the edge. And iOS 8 is probably going to be dribbling out at some point. Google obviously announced the Android L update, and they're definitely going to be fine-tuning and improving the Google Now service. And before we know it, by the time actually it's available and ready to be used, everyone else has kind of moved on.
Yeah.
I think I can see why Microsoft announced things relatively early and why they actually get the developer preview out there, because they're behind the curve to some extent. And we know that Apple, if they announce something, it's almost going to be out next day. I mean, a couple of days, a week later, maybe, but everyone will get their hands on it. But they don't tend to announce things until they're ready to announce things and deliver things. But that means if Microsoft would do that, they'd be announcing it now rather than last year, and they'd probably lost loads of people.
Yeah, I just think that that we've got this developer preview program, which is great. Otherwise we'd have no idea what the Windows 8.1 update. The Windows 8.1 release contained. It's been great that we get to kick the tires on it for the last couple of months, but I also think that audience, that enthusiast audience, would be a great beta test audience. Why not have Cortana on there and then say, unfortunately, it's when we roll out the update to everybody, unfortunately, we decided through the beta test feedback that it's not quite ready, but those of you on the developer preview program, you'll continue to have access to it. Please keep the feedback coming. It's that audience that's going to be a bit more forgiving, because we're used to, reinstalling our PCs because we've tried the latest and greatest beta operating system and it's trashed everything. It's with those kind of people, or the people that are legitimately on it, are developers. So
I think also it's something like Cortana where okay, they obviously there was a school of thought that they were going to release it before the end of June, because I was getting that backburner information quite a lot from different sources. But if there's a problem, so someone has said that on Twitter that it was coming in the next weeks, not months, and that was the start of June. So you'd expect end of June, start of July, that would be around. So if there's now a reason why it's not been going to come out, explain it. Explain why you're not going to release it. Just give us a few words. It doesn't take much. I mean, we know it's a preview. We know it's a beta. If things go wrong, they go wrong. It's not that most of the people who are actually on the program are not in quotes developers. I have some understanding of this fact. It just seems crazy to me that their marketing can get us in such a state with early adopters and the people who are influential out there. We talked the other week about the whole thing with the Surface and the way they marketed it out to people.
Yeah.
And if you look at the people they've acquired from Nokia got it this right more times than they got it wrong. By far. So they could learn an awful lot.
Yeah, definitely good. I think it's probably just struggling with the Geordie and Bristol accents, I think.
It could well be. I mean, certainly it has the ability to learn. So if there was a thought pattern that if you got a lot of accents which were problematic accents for it, it would learn those, and then the majority of accents wouldn't be able to be listened to. I know what it is. They've had to reserve all the computing power they're going to use to launch in the UK for predicting the World Cup results. Well, I think we're doing quite well on that.
They do, yeah.
Although, as someone pointed out on Twitter, all they've done is predicted the favourite of each match.
Yeah.
And the favourite in each match has won, so.
Yes, although I think Google fell a couple of games ago, didn't they? They got the prediction wrong, and Siri's just completely non-committal.
Yeah. I asked when I did have it working, because I set that Lumia to the US region. I asked it who was going to win the British Grand Prix at the weekend, and it just Googled it binged it for me, and gave me a lot of websites. So it's not that clever.
Yeah.
But I did try it actually. It's the first time I've been able to try it, so it's okay. I mean, it's not a particularly killer feature for me, but it is a nice, fun thing to have. Certainly, even just using the text-based queries on it was pretty good. So I quite like that. But of course, if you set your phone to be a US region phone, then you can't use the BBC iPlayer and ITV player and all the BBC region locked, all the UK region locked apps.
Yeah, no, that is an unfortunate side effect. And another side effect that I've had since I've had the 8.1 developer preview on is my kids were absolutely killing themselves laughing in the car the other day, because you can say like text contact name and it will compose a text message for you. Ever since I've had the developer preview on, every time I say text contact name, it says searching for text contact name. Right. And 3 or 4 times in, it will do it correctly. It will figure out what you actually want. But I thought, it's picked up that I've said text, such and such, so it knows what I've just said, but it goes searching for text. Like I say, my kids with their iPods were killing themselves laughing.
Yeah. It's not the way it would be, that is it?
No, definitely not.
No. So again, they've got a bit of work to do, I think, in the Windows Phone guys, just to really get the enthusiasts back on side. I think is probably the thing to do, isn't it? And then, get this update out there, because I think, like you said earlier, I think is it the 930's on sale now with.
It's the 18th or 17th of July. I think the 930 is officially on sale in the UK, but the 630 is already on sale. That comes with 8.1 already pre-installed, and the 635 has pretty much launched, I think, which is the LTE version. So again, it's just seems a bit. And I know these are the devices that have been designed and built with that operating system in mind, but even so, it's I'm sure there must be quite a bit of shared code. So it just seems it's just turned into a bit of a farce again, which I thought we were kind of put behind us.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll be talking with Ed about next week is sort of the thing that you mentioned. I think it was last week or the week before, about the Android sort of strategy. I just saw a couple of tweets tonight saying that Microsoft are looking at enabling Android apps to run on Windows Phone.
Yeah, I saw just before we started recording that Paul Thurrott had a post about that. And I think my conversation started from Ed Bott had a post. I think it was at the weekend. It was certainly after we recorded last week, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Talking about why Android is quite potentially important to Microsoft, and I thought, it wasn't until I read that I'd really kind of understood it. Ed Bott just has this great way of writing these kind of light bulb moment posts where you think, everything just kind of fits into place. You think, God, that just makes complete and utter sense that Microsoft could potentially make Android or the open source Android project could make it their own platform, and that kind of, without going into too much detail, because I'm sure we'll talk about it in depth with Ed Bott, but it does get you thinking. And I was thinking about this when we were chatting with Ed Bott on Twitter the other day, that actually, what do I love about Windows Phone? Do I love the fact that it runs the Windows operating system, or do I love the user experience? And actually, it's the user experience, and people like myself maybe care a bit, but actual consumers, they couldn't care less if it was Android underneath, as long as the Windows Phone experience remained intact.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking a bit more about that the other day, and I know some of the developers were sort of shouting about this and saying, "Oh," but it wouldn't actually take them much to build an RT runtime on top of Android. I think I've said this before, but so you could actually run the Windows apps as they are now, and therefore you still get all the benefits of both worlds.
Yeah.
Or would you do it the other way around and put an Android runtime on Windows Phone?
I mean, that's also been talked about, and I'm less certain that's the way to go. I think the biggest cost to Microsoft is supporting Windows Phone,
right,
as an operating system. In fact, supporting Windows as an operating system. And if they are going to be a services and device company, do they need to actually have their own operating system?
Well, yeah, I mean that is it, isn't it? I mean, if Windows Phone had launched but it had been written on top of Android, it was the user experience that blew me away. It wasn't really the underlying operating system. I mean, yeah, it was, and also, leading on from that, is the fact that the reason why Windows Phone works so well for me is because it integrates with all the Microsoft services that I use day in, day out. But essentially, if it was Android but had those same services intact, actually, would I really care? No. I mean, I guess, I'm a Microsoft guy. There'd be a bit of me that was a bit sad that it wasn't a Microsoft-built operating system. But, essentially, it would still be two ecosystems, but with one where just all you need to do is recompile your apps and put them in the Microsoft Android store as opposed to the Google store. You haven't got to get people like Sonos, etc., to completely rewrite their apps from the ground up.
Yeah,
and we'll definitely discuss that more next week. It's definitely interesting scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just ask Jason one question then. When are you buying your Nokia X?
Yeah, no, not while Windows Phone's still going. No, definitely not.
Not while it's still breathing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh well, it'll be good, interesting next week. I mean, I'd certainly, if I had that 1520 running Windows Phone, but could also run some of the Google apps that I use on my Nexus, I'd be really happy. Then I'd sort of have the ultimate device.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll
tell you what. I'm sorry. One thing we haven't really talked about is, I don't know if you're planning to come on to this, but was the Xbox APIs, the Xbox Music APIs.
Yeah, because they've updated their apps, but this is slightly different. This is the Open APIs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
We spoke about Open APIs a few months back, and I wasn't sure exactly how much they were opening up, but I'm pleased to say they opened up a whole lot. So basically, you can write your own music app on top of the Xbox Music now, which means I think we'll start seeing a lot of the clients which have on Android have access to Android Music, to Google Play, to Amazon Music. Will suddenly start having Xbox Music as well.
Oh, so Sonos could, because Sonos do that, don't they? Where they have Google Play and Amazon and everything else, they could just add Xbox Music.
They could add Xbox Music. One of my clients has already asked me to add it to one of my programs, so it's quite a nice open API. It looks relatively easy to use. A few typical Microsoft complexities which don't need to really be in there, but there's something about the API developers at Microsoft. Why make something simple when you like it nice and complex? I can't think of an example. There was something I was looking at the other day and thinking, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just let me go straight to this? Why do I have to go all around these hoops to do this? But anyway. Sorry, Jason.
I was just saying, I mean, that's certainly one thing that would make me rethink. I mean, as I said, I'm not planning on renewing my Xbox Music subscription just because I don't like the fact that the subscription is tied into my device so much. It's really difficult to share it, although easier now that the Xbox Music app on Windows Phone is separate, so I could give my wife credentials and she could log in with that account. But if Xbox Music became available on Sonos, and third-party apps allow me to access that music on multiple devices that weren't necessarily mine, then that would certainly make me rethink things. The only real limitation there might be the fact that I think Xbox Music's limited to about 4 or 5 devices, which can be quite limiting. Although I believe with Spotify it's only one stream at a time, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean that's certainly something that would make me rethink my plans at the moment.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what developers do with that, and I guess that it will mean the integration to other. I think the typical example would be Sonos, and it would be again, it makes that service more useful. If you get something more, it unlocks your subscription.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it makes it, not being able to stream any music we want on Sonos for us is becoming, is quite a big deal. So, if Xbox Music was integrated into that, or I could put, an Xbox Music style app onto my wife's Surface so she could access my account, then, that's exactly the sort of thing I want to move into.
Look, interesting to see what the devices come out from that. Some of the Windows Phone stuff while we're still on that. So we talked about the calendar problem last week. They fixed that the day after, so that was pretty swift.
Yep, that was we half expected that, didn't we? That it'd actually be fixed before we actually got the show out.
Yeah. So that was nice that they fixed that. Sort of a day, a bit embarrassing, but they got it out there. I don't think it affected anybody with Windows Phone, did it? It was Windows Phone 8. It was only the developer preview anyway.
Yeah, but as we said, our phone's out with that 8.1 on,
true.
So they were affected.
Yeah. The remote desktop app was updated for Windows Phone. That looked a nice improvement.
Yeah, it's just a few little bit tweaks, but it definitely improves it.
Yeah, I gave that a try. It was pretty good.
I still don't quite get remote desktop on a tiny phone. I mean, I'm sure the 1520 would work great, but on a smaller device, I just can't quite imagine trying to use remote desktop.
I've used it on the 920.
Have you?
Yeah, just in sort of emergency situations where you've just got to get in and get something sorted out. It is useful for that. We started Exchange on one of the servers, for example, using it. It's fiddly. It's not. I mean, it's not the best experience in the world, but nothing's going to be a good experience on that size of screen. So it's a pretty good attempt.
If you're out and about and you've got an emergency and the server needs rebooting, and it's either do it with that or drive home, and then it's worth having. The only problem I found is with Windows Phone 8's limited 8.1 limited VPN connection. It doesn't work with TMG server that we have, so I can't VPN in anyway. So I've still got to use my other phone. But the funny thing is I can share the connection from the 1520 and then VPN from the iPad or from the Surface and get in. So it's just the VPN client for Windows Phone 8 is a bit, well, there isn't one as such. You've got to kind of download third-party bits to it.
Yeah. I wonder if Windows Phone supports Bluetooth mice.
Probably does. The 1520 actually, that's what I tested it on last week. The 1520 is actually quite a good size for that.
Yeah. I posted in the chat room the link to Microsoft's article on doing scaling for the 1520. So it does need to be latest build of OS and stuff to actually work on it. So, but it is doable. Yeah. But it's still a bit restricting from what I can see. You can't actually write exactly full resolution screen things. You can scale, but you can't actually target exactly that.
And Jonathan in the chat room says the remote desktops on the small phone is a lifesaver if that's all you have at the time. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
And so what else was there for Windows Phone? The apps were updated, wasn't the Xbox Music and Xbox Video apps?
Yep. Do we know what changed?
I'm trying to remember. Microsoft have there's 3 ways they can go with it, isn't it? They have the old release notes, which is an old favourite, and catches out a lot of people, I must admit. And then, but they actually did have release notes because they use the user voice now, don't they? So
Yes, of course.
you can get the release notes from there. So there was improvements how the apps behave under poor connectivity conditions, improved download error handling. They're all bug fixes basically. That was for the music app, for the video app.
I think the updating library message went away as well, didn't it? I think so. The startup time should be improved, I think.
Yeah, it's just showing looking for music when nothing has changed. Yeah, maybe that's it. So a few changes, but it's good that they're keeping those up to date. Obviously, they're separate now from the OS, so they can keep those rolling out. And they needed the most attention, but they're getting there slowly, aren't they? What else?
Yeah, definitely. I've really been using the Xbox Music app on my Nokia. Now I've got the Bluetooth headphones, and it's quite interesting a bit because I've had the Now playing on full screen, so you get artist pictures, and it's people have kind of been stopping and noticing it. Although some of the pictures for iMaiden are very dated.
I'll tell you one bit of Windows Phone news I thought was quite interesting because of the team who actually developed it. I saw that Netatmo had put their Weather Station app on as a Windows Phone app developed by them, and they've very much been in the Apple world up to now. They're actually their stuff sold through the Apple Store, and when I chatted to them not long ago, they were very reticent to bring it to Windows Phone. So I don't know quite what's changed their mind, but it's good to see it come in.
I've noticed as well. You do see a lot of Universal apps now.
Sorry.
So go ahead, Gary.
Sorry, I think that was Jason.
What app was that? Sorry, I missed it.
The Netatmo, their Weather Station app. So,
right.
Yes, Netatmo are doing a lot of home automation stuff, and it's been very iOS centric up till now. Even they haven't really done that much on the Android side. It's taken them a while to get Android apps out. I've been playing with one of their sensors of late. They've got I have actually recently been playing with it, but it's the thing called the Netatmo Dune, which is basically a UV sensor. So it actually tells you how much sunlight you've been exposed to, which is quite interesting. But that requires it's Bluetooth smart, and it requires it only actually currently has an iOS app for it, and they sort of don't seem to be that keen to generate anything else. Works really well, I have to say, as long as you've got your iPhone with you, because there's no actual storage in the unit. It just sends data all the time to the Apple unit, but it gives you a constant flow of how much exposure you've had. It's very. They'll freely admit it's targeted at the female market, and it's sort of like aimed at that market, which are interested in anti-aging guides things, because obviously UV is associated with that. But it's also quite useful for people who've got sun allergies, or for checking to see you're not overexposing yourself to the sun. And as I say, it does work well as long as you've got contact. As long as you've actually got your device with you. If you walk any way away from your device, it stops sending data through, so it's a bit of a pain in that respect. But it's a very nice designed app, and they really are they do design some really nice apps. It's interesting the design on the one they've actually done for the Windows Phone. I think I'd quite like Jason to have a download of it and have a look at it and see what he thinks at some point. I don't want to sort of prejudge it.
You know what that means, don't you?
What?
It means vampires can now adopt Windows Phone.
True. Yep.
That's a market that they have been going after. To be fair.
Absolutely, yeah.
Transylvanian European market.
Yeah.
And teenage girls, isn't it, that read books about them as well.
Yeah.
Watch films about them.
Yeah.
There was one other app I noticed as well for this week for Windows Phone release, was the iPlayer Radio.
Yes.
Because last time they updated the iPlayer Windows Phone app, they took out the radio features, so this is a separate app now, which is kind of a hybrid app, I think. It's part web browser, hybrid, native app, but it seems to work okay. I gave it a quick try, and it seems to do the job.
Yeah, it just seems strange how BBC are putting all their efforts into Windows Phone and completely ignoring Windows 8 and Xbox.
Yeah, that's a strange situation. Yeah,
very strange.
I'm still waiting for iPlayer on the Xbox One. That's taking some time, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
And you were talking about the health stuff before, Gary. we mentioned last week, I think, the rumor about the Microsoft Watch that it would be more sort of some kind of tracker. Well, I think we had some more details of that this week, or more rumors about it anyway. That it is going to be a very sensor-heavy device and less of a watch.
Yeah, when someone in Microsoft said, "Don't call it a watch," so we can't call it a watch. But it's definitely going to be a sensor-laden sport tracker, fitness tracker type thing. I think can get competitive with some of the Nike products and things like that.
But if you got notifications on it as well, it worked with multiple devices, then multiple platforms, then that's the one for me over the Android one.
Yeah, I mean, I want to watch, but I haven't found the right one yet.
Yeah, I think from the early reviews of the Android Wear stuff, it's kind of early days yet.
It is, yeah. I mean, the fact you can't put paid apps on it, I think that's an interesting bug. I think Jason's idea from last week is what I actually really want, but
yeah, I'm still waiting for the patents on that one.
Yeah, but I've got a Pebble coming for review for Fascinating Tech, so I'm gonna have a look at that because they basically want to talk about fitness tracking. They've just done a join up with a company called Misfit who produced the Shine tracker. I don't know if you've come across that.
No.
It's quite a popular little fitness tracker. It's a very sort of they call it Shine because it's sort of a bit gem-like. It's basically smaller clips on, but they've actually built the sense in software somehow. They've turned the Pebble into a Shine sensor, so you don't actually have to have the separate Shine sensor.
Yeah. That's a nice comment from Daniel in the chat room.
That's brilliant.
Microsoft couldn't do a watch because their timing has always been terrible. Ba-bum.
Yeah, because Microsoft does have that service that it gets very, very little coverage, which is the Microsoft Health Vault, which the Bing Health app can tie into, and I think the Fitbit website can transmit its data into it, and but it gets very, very little coverage.
And that's what I think the watch will be linked to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes absolute sense, I think.
No, they can't call it a watch. The sensor. Yeah. The band, the fitness band.
Yeah. So all those vampires with Windows phones will be able to keep fit as well.
Yep.
What else?
But I mean, sorry, just to say, I mean, certainly their unique selling point is the fact, as Ian, I think you've said, it's going to be cross-platform, which so far, it comes back to this whole argument, that if the web was developed today, it would probably be this really closed system whereby everyone was trying to get you to use their systems and lock in, like
MSN.
Yes.
AOL. To be honest, it's a bit of that's going on today. Did you see the thing with Google and Hangouts now only working on Chrome?
No, I didn't see that. I know they've gone to a native Chrome plugin. I didn't realize it was exclusion of.
Yeah, so you have to have the Chrome plug-in, so which means you need Chrome on a desktop device. I mean, obviously it still works on iPhones and things like that in Safari, but I think that's the thin end of the wedge from Google. I think they really are going to start. They seem to be getting more and more proprietary as they go on.
Yeah, actually, I was chatting to a guy at work who's got an Android phone, and he was absolutely dismayed to discover that there was a website where he could see everywhere he'd been.
I like that.
Yeah, but it was more not the fact that it could do it, because he could see the useful, but it was more the fact that it went on without him having absolutely any idea that it was tracking that kind of information to that level of detail.
Yes, I mean it shows. I mean I use it every now and again. You can see your route home, and depends on how often you picks up the GPS or whatever, but especially if I'm in the car, it seems to pick up quite often. But you can see when I've been on flights, and it's quite handy for that. But if you're not aware of it, I guess it can be a bit disconcerting.
Yeah. Was that site? When should I break into your house? There's actually a website which tells you that.
Yeah.
And one of the things it uses now is the Google feed to work out if you're travelling.
Yeah. Now, another device that we've talked about on and off for a while, that we wanted to see is a Surface Mini. Now, we were expecting the release of that when they had their small gathering, Microsoft, and they used the word small gathering, which hinted at a Surface Mini, and that by all accounts, the thing was pulled at the last minute because there wasn't enough differentiation with other OEM ones like the Toshiba Encore and the Dell Venue. But we've had a rumor that it's back and in production now, ready for a release later this year. But then that's been counter-rumored saying no, it's not. That's not going to happen either. So what's going on?
Will they? Won't. Will they? Won't they?
Well, the other rumour I heard that, and from a fairly trusted source, was that the next Microsoft tablet will be a Lumia.
Yes, we've heard quite. Gary, your picture's suddenly gone bright and colourful.
I know, that's because the lights just came on automatically because it's dusk, and then my home automation system realised it's dusk and turned the lights on.
We shouldn't say lights off then.
No, you actually probably can, because there's now an automatic thing on it that says when Gary is on Skype do not respond to microphone command.
So yeah, that's the other thing that I think we talked about last week, that Lumia could be the brand for especially the small devices. But so the Mini could be a Lumia.
Well,
or it's something different.
I mean, these are all very much rumours I'm hearing, and I've heard them from a couple of sources that they may be retooling the Surface Mini to turn it into a Lumia style design.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So moving away from the squared edges and going around edges and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely love my Lumia 2520. It goes everywhere with me, and you know, I still pick up the Surface 2, which is kind of been adopted by the kids for watching Stampy Cat videos. But and I'm still amazed at the quality of the Surface 2 whenever I pick it up. But I still, you know, as I've said many a time, you know, I just don't like those jagged edges. For me, I much prefer the design of the Lumia 2520, and I could absolutely see myself with a Mini, you know, a 1250 or something, or whatever it might be.
2250.
Yes.
Going on, Nokia. I have no real knowledge, but that sounds like they're sort of, or 1350, wouldn't it?
Yeah. 1450, wouldn't it? Because Ian's got the 1350.
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh, I give up.
1520.
Yes. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
just all these numbers.
So I think the room this week came from Everleaks or Evileaks or something like that, who often has quite good sources. Said it's back in production, but I think it was on Mary Jo Foley's blog saying no, it's probably not in production. And the key thing that's holding it up is the touch version of Office.
Which would make sense as well, if they were going to go that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would certainly make sense that the Surface or the Lumia Mini launched with, you know, maybe Threshold, where it really is a proper tablet without the desktop operating system. You know, there's lots of talk about a merge of Windows RT and Windows Phone, but at the same time, you would have thought the hardware must be, you know, updatable. There's no reason why it couldn't run Windows 8.1 and then Windows 9. It just, because presumably, from what I can see, they're not necessarily selling like crazy, but the 8-inch Windows tablets are selling. There are people with it are interested in them. So it seems a bit odd that, you know, they wouldn't sell it with that, for want of a better word, slightly compromised experience, but with a future update, you know, pending.
I mean, I'd like to see with the Windows RT as it is on my Surface 2 minus the desktop on the 1520, because the screening's good enough that, and the scaling is better in Windows. And I think that, you know, the browser and everything else would be better. So I'd be quite happy to see that OS sort of ported. I would imagine the hardware on the Lumia is probably good enough to run it anyway.
Yeah, you were saying things that were silly. I mean, you know, Windows 8 might not be the success everyone wanted it to be, but Microsoft have got a pretty good track record now of, you know, Windows 7 and Windows 8 having pretty similar hardware requirements to what, you know, Windows XP and Windows Vista had.
Yeah, and maybe that's the merged operating system will bring sort of what I was saying then, sort of bring it all together, and whether we'll see that on hardware like the 1520 or whether it will be the sort of the generation after that next year sometime we'll see that.
Yeah, I would like to still see the Surface Mini, whatever guise that kind of takes.
Especially with the pen, I think, because that's one thing that I think Dell do ship a pen, but I'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Surface Pro 3 works with that, press the button on the pen to leap straight into OneNote, I'd love to see that on a small tablet.
I went to, and I've been in meetings today, and I took the iPad Mini because I knew there wouldn't be a lot of I knew it was going to be sort of note-taking and not very interactive stuff, so I take that. If I'm going into a meeting and we're going to be looking at stuff on a screen and I may be going into a server checking something, then I'll use the Surface because you get a better view. But with the pen and things, I think we're quite nice on a Surface Mini. I guess I suppose what they want to do is avoid having thousands of these things on shelves and it kind of be another thing that fails.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter too much if Toshiba and Dell sell small amounts of them. It's this Microsoft launch product and sell small amounts, then that's the issue.
Yeah, and I think their partners have done a pretty good job in that space, to be honest. And I can see why the board might say, well, why are we putting hardware out when the whole point of us doing hardware is to sort of lead the way and show people how to do things.
Yeah.
And if people are doing a reasonable good job in that respect, why do that?
But then why buy Nokia?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it certainly would be nice to see a smaller RT-based device. I think that would be for me that would be the differentiator. But and as Gary said on plenty of occasions, the RT devices do have quite a high return rate because people don't quite appreciate what they can and can't do.
Yeah. It was interesting actually. I was talking about 2520s. They with the guys who tell me about the Surface return rates, and they were saying they don't get anywhere near as many 2520 20s back.
Mm.
I think it's probably because they look more like a tablet.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Particularly with them, yeah. No, that could well be true. I mean, certainly, like I said, I absolutely love mine, and I there's things about that I miss. I wish it kind of got the 64 gig storage and little things like that. But in terms of overall experience, I much prefer it to the Surface.
Now, and talking of the Surface, there's been we've had it's Patch Tuesday, so we've got the Surface updates out today. I've put a post on this, but there didn't seem to be as many changes for the Surface 2 and Surface 2 Pro, but there are for the Surface 3.
Yes, yeah, I think the Surface 2 is pretty minimal. I think something to do with, was it Wi-Fi, I think? But yeah, the Surface Pro 3 certainly gets a lot of battery style updates, and I noticed that a future update will follow on the 16th of July to fix Wi-Fi, or with additional fixes to Wi-Fi. Although I think I picked up from Mary Jo Foley, she noted that now the actual update history pages actually state that not everyone will get the updates at the same time, and I still think that's a change of strategy.
Yes, it does explicitly say there now that you may not get the update immediately or something, and it's rolled out over time. So yeah, I think that is a change. I haven't run while we're on the recording, I haven't tried it on mine yet, so I don't know whether they're available. But like you said, they're pretty minimal for the Surface 2. I think the Surface 2 just got an update for the LTE version, the 4G version, for the firmware, for the improves 18T reliability. And the Pro 2 just gets wireless network controller update. It's the 3, isn't it, that gets all
the 3 needs the updates though, doesn't it?
Yes.
If you see what's been going on Twitter and people saying they're going to return the device within the time limit because it's just not getting updates and support. I think Microsoft again dropped the ball on their publicity on this. They should be, when they've got a serious problem as they appear to have with that Wi-Fi, they should be on it in a moment, explaining what the problem is and saying what they're doing to fix it.
Yes.
Yeah, because all it does again is it's the early adopters who are often the noisiest as well.
Yeah.
And the early reviews that come out they're the ones that are going to hit the problems and potentially ever put people off. So if he explained it a bit and said next Tuesday we're going to have these fixes and.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought that Microsoft were becoming more open under Satya. They seem to have had a step back in the last couple of months. I'm not sure what's caused that or why, but there seem to have been a real sort of closing of ranks, and things not coming out of the building. Maybe it's because when they do come out of the building, they get them wrong.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's certainly, it was, it's been quite a breath of fresh air over the last few months with information about the Threshold coming out and, peeks into what could be the next, the reintroduction of the start menu and, talks of, Windows Phone 8.1. But, any consumers that tune into the Windows 8.1 announcement must be wondering, where is it?
I suppose what they did, they have an event like Build where they've talked about a lot of really interesting things, and then of course there's no event now, so it goes into ultra quiet mode until the next big event, and perhaps could do with filling the gaps in a little bit.
Yeah, but I think as we were talking about earlier, where they announce stuff and then things go wrong or stuff like that, they really should follow that up and have something out there. I mean, they have very poor PR. it just seems like that, and it has been for a long time. And I would have thought that was something they should have tried to address. But hey, we're not Microsoft.
I mean, there was a time when MVPs like in Gary were getting sort of inside information on what's coming next with Media Center, so you could almost field some of the questions and point people in the right direction. But I think since the Sinofsky era, that sort of never happened, and I would imagine we're not the only ones. With all the other product groups have the same restrictions.
Yeah, I think I mean, because I saw a notice, I think it either got closed or got filled almost as soon as it opened, but the Office team were looking for beta testers.
Yes, I did that.
And I'm guessing it's probably to do with the Android apps potentially, but I just thought, blimey, that would be amazing if Microsoft took that step back and started to reintroduce not the preview programs for Windows, but the real beta tester program where people actually get hands-on and get to actually provide some real-world feedback, not just necessarily bug fixes, but also user experience. I still, you kind of question, would Windows 8 have happened if they'd had that closed beta program where, people like, you imagine, guys like Paul Thurrott and, those sort of people would be on those beta programs. People like Edbot, they'd be quite, capable of giving actual real-world feedback, not from a technical point of view or from an API perspective, but actually just, real-world usage. But
the only time Microsoft has really ever done that was Windows 7.
Yeah, but that was still really a preview. I'm more thinking because I was on the Windows 95 beta test program and the Windows 98 beta test program.
I think you're right. I mean, probably it was just prior to your time as MVP, Gary. But when I got hardware. I've still got the hardware somewhere.
Right. Okay. So so I probably missed out on that.
Yeah, but it was in the XP and Vista actually. It probably was, which is probably maybe why they didn't do it. But I got a machine with Diamond on Media Center.
Yeah, so I suppose I'm thinking probably more preview on that. I actually felt the preview program worked far better than anything they'd done up to that point. And I think that's why Windows 7 was so successful. Because there was far more people testing it than ever before.
But Windows 8 was very. I found the issue with Windows 8, and I saw this from others like Bob Bowman and other people in the MVP program, was that the feedback got. There was no. You could test stuff out on the preview program. I'm talking probably the Windows 8 preview program here, but no one listened to the feedback anyway. Yeah. So you kind of wasted your time. Whereas in previous updates like Windows 7 and XP and Vista, maybe they listened to the feedback a bit more, and if they had listened to the feedback, they wouldn't have been as surprised over the reaction to the Windows 8 UI. Because I'm sure they got all that feedback from testers, but just didn't react to it. But then there was that sort of attitude at Microsoft at the time that we know what we're doing. In the words of Kimi Räikkönen, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps changed a little bit now, but yeah, you're right about the PR thing. You've got to react fast and keep your loyal enthusiasts happy, and they can bring on the other people.
Yeah, I would say that I think Microsoft got a lot of things right this year. I think that there's been we were talking about a few months back about sea change. I just hope that continues and doesn't drift back.
Yeah, that's what we want to see. We want to see a bit of community involvement and so on. So that would be good.
Yeah.
Now, Jonathan was asking in the chat room about the Surface Pro firmware update.
I was trying to get to the update page, and it's taking me to the Windows Live login page, and then getting into a page loop.
There are some updates for the Pro.
There was. Yeah,
there's UEFI, Intel HD graphics, Intel Display Audio, power cover firmware. They've not really had any updates for the last few months, so they're perhaps catching up with some of these from the Pro 2. They've put those back into the original Pro.
Well, I think a lot of those are actually Intel driven as well, aren't they? I mean, they've updated their drivers It's been a while
that's
since,
right, yeah.
since they actually did that, so it's probably as good idea to get them out as anything.
Yeah. A couple of things I want to mention before we finish. I've got a video I've recorded some, but it probably out over the next week or so. Android. Did you see the Android box I posted the pictures on?
Yeah,
on my
that's interesting.
Yeah, nice little box. So it's not an Android TV. What's it called? It's called vidon.me or vidon.me. It's an Android. They could describe it as an Android Blu-ray player, but it's essentially it's a set-top box running Android 4.2, I think it was, but with XBMC built into it, sort of a custom version of XBMC for this device. It's got optical output, HDMI, all the things that you would need, but it also supports Android apps, and including installing the Play Store. So it didn't have, I think it was Google Play Music wasn't on there, but I installed the Play Store, then installed Google Play Music. So from this set-top box, you can install any Android app. So, I had everything I tried worked. So Netflix, Google Play Music, BBC iPlayer, all worked, and it's a nice little set-top box with a remote. So it's another solution for home movies. But I then used my VideoBox server and streamed movies from there, the Blu-ray movies, and that worked fine. It's actually got a nice little feature like the Dune HD does, where it will bypass all the Blu-ray menus and go straight to the track as well, which is the first track. So you can actually start a movie without going through all the crap that precedes it. Which so a nice little box. I'll have a video of that out soon. So nice, interesting little box. The other thing I've been playing with Android is I got Android L installed on my Nexus 4 today.
Ah.
So my Nexus 4 is sort of sat gathering dust, so I thought I'd give it a go. So there's an official Google Android L image for the Nexus 5 and for the 2013 Nexus 7s, but there isn't one for the Nexus 4 and the original Nexus 7. But the community and CyanogenMods mods, and they're very fast at doing all this kind of stuff. And so they've got builds out there. So I just rooted it and unlocked the Nexus 4 and brought down this image that the community had built. So it's not a Google image. It's just using the source code from the Android pages, and it works okay. There's not a huge amount of difference because all the apps are still the Jelly Bean, the KitKat versions. So not seeing a huge amount of change. And there's a few bugs and glitches in the screens and things like that, but you get the idea. I think it looked good. So it certainly runs okay. It runs pretty fast. So I guess we'll see that for the official one at some point in the future.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, they've limited it to certain platforms at the moment, but I would have thought their aim would be to get it out on as many Android phones as possible. And
to go with that, there's quite a few apps that have been updated for supporting Android L. I know VLC has been updated for Android that supports Android L. Allcast has been updated that supports it.
I remember an hour a lad there was going to be VLC for Windows 8.
Well, yeah. There is VLC for Windows 8, but only for Intel, isn't it? I've got it installed on my Encore, and it works great. But it's just that they haven't got the ARM only, and I'm surprised that. Well, I'm not surprised because I know how complex this stuff is when you do it on through the store restrictions that Gary always gets upset about sometimes. But
it's really quiet, hasn't it? It just it wasn't until I saw your post about the Android VLC for Android update. I thought, hang on a sec, we haven't talked about that. It must be 2 or 3 months now we haven't mentioned that.
Yeah.
I did talk not too long ago about an update to the Intel release, but they were talking very much about having it as just a UI changes in UX, but didn't mention the RT one again.
And of course the Windows Phone one was supposed to be at the same time based on the RT code. It was, I suppose what they're trying to do is get a universal app.
Yeah, that's certainly would be the aim I would go if I were them, but they're going to struggle. I mean, with certainly the restrictive, restrictions certainly on the phone are even more so than the 8.1 version.
But I was surprised in some respect because when I was, my Flickr app nowhere near as complex as VLC, but I didn't. There was no difference between the Intel and the ARM version. It's just one package that I uploaded. But I guess they've had to go a lot lower down on the.
Well, now we're talking codecs and stuff like that. And all that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, but you're right, Jason. It's gone very quiet on that.
Yeah, very, very quiet.
Yeah, but then of course, if you can run Android apps on your 1520, then you can just install the Android beta. So we'll talk more about that next week. So I think that'll be all we've got time for this week. But this time next week, or 8 o'clock UK time on Tuesday evening, if we start on time, hopefully we will, we'll have Edbot with us to talk, all things Windows and Microsoft. Ed's always a fantastic guest. It's always very nice to ask a question and then sit back and listen.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. It'll be really good.
Yeah. Well, so Gary, what have you got on Fascinating Tech?
I said the last week the new issue is out. Please come along and try your hands at the competition. We've got a huge amount of prizes on the competition, so come along to fascinatingtech.com and see if you can win it.
Yep. And what's your Twitter?
It's at Gary with 2 R's WMA.
And Jason, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DatabaseJace.
Excellent, great stuff. Well, thanks to everybody that joined us in the chat room. It was good to have somebody in there with the questions and some nice jokes from.
I did like the watch joke from Daniel. That's very clever.
Yeah,
It was.
I'll try and remember that.
As I said, he's here all week, so we can get him to do more jokes next week.
Well, anyway, thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks everybody in the chat room, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Okay, good stuff.
That was a good episode.